Good evening. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we begin with a critical cybersecurity story that reveals a disturbing trend emerging from one of Africa's largest economies. A new, comprehensive study has found that malicious insider threats are surging in South Africa at rates far exceeding global averages. This isn't about accidental data leaks or phishing scams. This is about deliberate, calculated data theft by employees within organizations, a threat that is growing more severe by the month. The study, Mimecast's latest State of Human Risk report, surveyed 2,500 IT security and IT decision makers across 9 countries, including 200 specifically in South Africa. The findings are stark. 46% of South African respondents reported a rise in malicious insider incidents over the past year. That's nearly half of all organizations surveyed. To put that in perspective, the global average for reporting such an increase is significantly lower. This suggests a unique and intensifying crisis within South African corporate and government structures. But the data gets even more concerning. The report indicates that 42% of South African organizations have experienced a data breach directly caused by a malicious insider in the last 2 years. That's a staggering figure, representing billions of rands in potential damages, stolen intellectual property, and compromised customer data. Furthermore, 33% of these organizations reported that the malicious activity was conducted by senior leadership or executives. This isn't just disgruntled junior staff. This is a threat emanating from the very top of the organizational chart. The financial motivation is the primary driver, cited by 91% of respondents. However, revenge against the company and ideological reasons also feature prominently. The average cost of a single insider-led data breach in South Africa is estimated at a staggering 13.1 million US dollars. That's a figure that can cripple mid-sized companies and deliver a severe blow to even the largest corporations. Now, why is this happening? Experts point to a perfect storm of socioeconomic pressures. South Africa continues to grapple with high unemployment, currently sitting at over 32%, persistent income inequality, and a cost of living crisis. For some employees, the temptation to monetize their access to sensitive data becomes overwhelming. Additionally, the rapid digital transformation of South African businesses has created vast new repositories of valuable data, often without corresponding investments in sophisticated internal monitoring and data loss prevention tools. This creates opportunity. Combine that opportunity with financial pressure or disaffection, and you have the recipe for the surge we're seeing. The types of data being targeted are particularly alarming. Financial records, customer personally identifiable information, and proprietary business strategies top the list. In one high-profile case last year, a senior IT administrator at a major Johannesburg-based financial services firm was arrested for allegedly stealing a database containing the personal and banking details of over 1 million customers. The data was reportedly being shopped on dark web forums. The firm has not disclosed the ultimate financial impact, but the reputational damage is immense. This case is not an outlier. It is emblematic of the trend. The Mimecast report also highlights a critical gap in organizational preparedness. While 64% of South African IT leaders say they are concerned about the insider threat, only 38% report having a dedicated insider risk management program in place. There is a clear disconnect between recognizing the danger and taking concrete, funded steps to mitigate it. Many organizations still rely on basic perimeter defenses, firewalls, antivirus software, which are useless against an authorized user with legitimate credentials who decides to act maliciously. This requires a shift in security philosophy, from guarding the castle walls to monitoring activity within the castle itself. Behavioral analytics, user activity monitoring, and strict enforcement of the principle of least privilege access are becoming essential, not optional. The human element, however, remains the most challenging to address. How do you predict which employee might turn? Some firms are turning to more frequent security awareness training that specifically addresses the insider threat, encouraging a culture of reporting suspicious activity among colleagues. Others are implementing more rigorous background checks during hiring, especially for positions with access to critical data. But in an environment of high stress and economic anxiety, these measures can only go so far. The surge in malicious insider activity also intersects with broader geopolitical and social tensions within South Africa, which brings us to our second point of analysis tonight. This cybersecurity crisis is unfolding against a backdrop of heightened racial and political rhetoric, some of which is emanating from the highest levels of international power. In a rare and direct criticism, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has labeled a policy from U.S. President Donald Trump as racist. The policy in question, announced by the Trump administration in late 2025, offers a special refugee status pathway for white Afrikaners from South Africa, based on claims of persecution and the controversial concept of white genocide. President Ramaphosa, in an interview with the New York Times, called President Trump truly uninformed for perpetuating these claims, which are widely debunked by academics and mainstream South African institutions. Ramaphosa stated, and I quote, "There is no persecution, there is no genocide. This is a sovereign, democratic state with a constitution that protects all its people. This diplomatic spat is more than just words. It has tangible effects." Security analysts we've spoken to suggest that such inflammatory international rhetoric can potentially fuel the very insider threats we're discussing. It can validate a narrative of victimhood or impending doom for certain groups within the country, which could, in turn, be weaponized. An employee who believes, rightly or wrongly, that their community or way of life is under threat might justify stealing data or sabotaging systems as a form of preemptive action or as a way to secure resources for an uncertain future. It creates an us versus them mentality that can seep into the workplace. While direct causation is difficult to prove, the confluence of these two stories, a domestic surge in insider cybercrime and an international controversy over racial politics, paints a picture of a nation under complex, multidimensional stress. The data theft isn't happening in a vacuum. It's happening in a specific South African context of 2026 with all its unique challenges. To fully understand the regional implications, we must also look north to the East African community, where another significant leadership decision is pending. The EAC is preparing to select its next Secretary General, a decision that President William Ruto, as the current chairperson, will heavily influence. The position is currently held by South Sudan's Peter Mathuki, and there is a contentious debate over whether the next Secretary General should also come from South Sudan, effectively allowing the country to serve 2 consecutive terms. Many analysts and commentators within the bloc argue strongly against this. They point to South Sudan's ongoing internal conflicts, its struggles with implementing EAC protocols, and allegations of corruption within its delegation to the Arusha-based secretariat. The argument is that the Secretary General must come from a member state that exemplifies stability, adherence to the rule of law, and a clean governance record to restore credibility and drive the EAC's ambitious integration agenda forward. The choice is seen as a referendum on whether the EAC prioritizes political rotation and appeasement over merit and effectiveness. This matters to our cybersecurity story because regional stability and strong institutions are key to combating transnational cybercrime. A weak, distracted, or politically compromised EAC secretariat is less capable of fostering the cross-border cooperation needed to track cybercriminals, harmonize data protection laws, and share intelligence on threat actors, including those who might exploit insider threats in one country to launch attacks in another. Kenya, as a tech hub, has a vested interest in a secure and stable digital environment across the region. Cyber threats do not respect borders. An insider in a South African bank could facilitate a fraud scheme that targets customers in Nairobi. Therefore, the governance and security health of our regional neighbors is directly relevant to Kenya's own cybersecurity posture. Now, let's return to the data and delve deeper into the South African study's global comparisons. While 46% of South African firms reported a rise in malicious insiders, the global average for reporting such an increase stands at just 38%. That's an 8 percentage point gap, indicating South Africa is an outlier on the wrong side of this metric. When asked if they felt vulnerable to such an attack, 52% of South African IT leaders said yes, compared to a global average of 44%. This perception of vulnerability aligns with the reality of the higher incident rates. Furthermore, the study found that 28% of South African organizations took more than a month to discover a malicious insider incident once it had occurred. That's a month of undetected data exfiltration, system manipulation, or intellectual property theft. The longer the detection time, the greater the damage. In contrast, the most secure organizations globally aim to detect such incidents within days, if not hours. This detection lag points to the maturity gap in monitoring tools and investigative processes within many South African entities. The report also breaks down the sectors most affected. The financial services and insurance sector reports the highest level of concern and experience with malicious insiders at 61%. This is unsurprising, given the direct access to money and valuable financial data. The technology sector follows at 58%, and the healthcare sector at 54%. Healthcare is particularly sensitive, as insider theft can involve protected patient health information, which commands a high price on illicit markets. The public sector is not immune, with 47% of government IT leaders reporting concerns, though actual reported incidents are believed to be underreported due to political sensitivities and national security considerations. So, what is the solution? There is no silver bullet, but a multi-layered approach is critical. First, technology. Deploying advanced user and entity behavior analytics platforms can establish a baseline of normal activity for each employee and flag significant deviations. Implementing robust data loss prevention solutions that can monitor and control data movement, both within the network and to external devices or cloud services, is essential. Second, process, enforcing strict access controls and regularly reviewing who has access to what, a principle known as privilege access management, can limit the damage any single insider can do. Having a clear, practiced incident response plan specifically for insider threats can drastically reduce the time to containment. Third, and perhaps most importantly, culture, fostering a workplace environment of transparency, fair treatment, and open communication can reduce the grievances that lead to malicious action. Employee assistance programs that help staff with financial or personal problems can address some of the root cause pressures. And creating a safe, anonymous channel for employees to report suspicious behavior without fear of reprisal can turn the workforce itself into a detection network. This is often called a see something, say something culture in cybersecurity. For Kenya, there are clear lessons. As our economy continues to digitize and our corporations become more data-rich, we must be proactive. The socioeconomic pressures that contribute to insider risk exist here as well. Kenyan IT and security leaders should view the South African data as a cautionary tale. Investing in insider risk management now, before a major crisis hits, is far cheaper than dealing with the aftermath of a $13.1 million breach. It requires budget, executive buy-in, and a shift from seeing security as an IT cost center to seeing it as a core business enabler and protector. In conclusion, the surge in malicious insider threats in South Africa is a complex crisis born from technological opportunity, economic pressure, and a unique social landscape. It is exacerbated by international political narratives and has implications for regional stability and cybersecurity cooperation. The numbers are clear: 46% report an increase, 42% have been breached, 33% involve senior staff, at an average cost of $13.1 million per incident. For South Africa, addressing this requires a fundamental rethink of internal security. For Kenya and the wider East African region, it is a stark warning and a call to action to build more resilient, vigilant, and ethically grounded digital enterprises. The insider is the threat already inside the gates. The question for every organization is not if they will face this threat, but when, and more importantly, whether they will be ready. Subscribe to Kenya News Update today.